Yes, welcome into SportsBIT. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Big game breakdown. Steelers and the Chiefs. How about the Packers and the Cowboys? And of course, play of the day. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books, and a lot of NFL news with some coaches on the move. Friday the 13th, stay at home. Be careful out there. Jason Voorhees is loving this. Ooh, spooky out there. One of our few shows on Friday the 13th, Teddy.
Yeah, I got my mask on, dude. I got my Jason mask. It's actually my kid's hockey mask. It's about 5,000 feet too long for me. But this is our Friday the 13th moment, so be it.
Every goalie mask from the 80s. Everyone had that type of mask back in the NHL. How about bad bets? We had a day game yesterday in the NBA. They bet the Pacers, not even close. They bet the over. That was the right call. Nuggets dropped 140 in London on them.
Yeah, the Nuggets had at least 30 in every quarter. They moved the ball so well, 37 assists in that game. They hit $140, and no one scored more than Nikola Jokic's 22 points. Of course, the Pacers took a ton of money in that game. I think they left their defense at customs. Minus 2.5 to minus 4.5 for Indiana. They lose by 28. That was a wrong move, but the markets did have the right idea on the total. Not a whole lot of defense, but up from 223 to 226. All that over money cashed with room to spare.
Tough beat and a bad beat, and it was the Nets, who were +5 and then went off the favorite because of no Anthony Davis. And how many times have we said it on SportsBIT? I think 50 times. The markets overreact when a player sits out because the guys who are in there are going to step their game up while the opponents will relax.
Yeah, it happens over and over and over again. You have probably said it 50 times on SportsBIT already this year. We'll probably say it 50 more times before the season is done. The markets overreact when a star player sits for one game. You know, everybody on the team who the star player is sitting out from knows they got to step up. There's lots of extra minutes to distribute. There's lots of extra shots to distribute, and players tend to take advantage of that. So Tyreek Evans scores 29 off the bench. Drew Holiday burying threes. And oh, by the way, the Nets are the worst team in the NBA. They can't really be favored over anyone. Of course, the fact that there was a 7.5-point line move on this game all towards Brooklyn, and New Orleans won outright, tells us that pretty clearly. But, of course, what's the bad beat element of it? Hey, how about this? The Nets were winning with 3.5 minutes left, a 13-1 Pelicans run to close out the game with Anthony Davis on the bench.
Yes. Hey, the Knicks won a game. Let's have a parade. That was big. They did it without Butler. No Mirotic and Butler for the Bulls as the Knicks going to win at home as well. A lot of bad bets in college hoops. How about Clemson? 10.5-point chalk. They lose outright.
Yo, they lose outright by double digits. Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jackets, been pulling off a couple of upsets of late. Win this one by double digits. And, of course, Clemson took the money. Opened 9, 9.5, closed 10, 10.5. Georgia Tech wins outright.
All right, I didn't understand betting against Notre Dame. Miami's a feisty team, but Notre Dame is tough, and we like Mike Bray on this show. Miami closed as high as 4.5, win as high as 4.5, closed at 3.5. Notre Dame gets the win on the road, and you knew Wisconsin was going to be in a bad mood against the Buckeyes.
Yeah, they sure were. The Badgers bet down, +11 down to +10. There was Ohio State money. I didn't understand it. They were in a feisty mood after that embarrassing effort at Purdue. Wisconsin wins by 23. A bad bet for the markets, who are all in love with Ohio State.
All right, NFL coaching news. How about Sean McVay gets the Los Angeles Rams job? He's 30 years old. In 2009, he was in the United Football League. Did a great job as offensive coordinator with the Redskins. The talk was maybe Gruden. They got to make a splashy hire. Wade Phillips will be the defensive coordinator, but they go with a 30-year-old. Remember, Lane Kiffin was 31 when Al Davis hired him. That didn't go too well.
Well, yeah, look at the track record of the 4 youngest head coaches in the Super Bowl era. You got Lane Kiffin, Raheem Morris, David Shula, Josh McDaniels. That quartet, all of whom are older, or were older when they got hired, than Sean McVay, that quartet finished a combined 52 and 115 before being fired by their respective teams. Now, who is this kid? He's the youngest head coach since Pappy Lewis took over for the Cleveland Browns in 1938 when he was 27 years old. So how does a 30-year-old guy get to be an NFL head coach? Real simple. You got to know somebody. And McVay, the grandson of John McVay, who was a very successful San Francisco 49ers executive and got 5 rings on his fingers looking over those Super Bowl teams in the 80s and 90s, but he spent the last 3 years running the Redskins offense. Easy enough to do when you have a competent quarterback and a boatload of good receivers and a decent offensive line. The LA Rams have none of that coming into the equation, although at least from the talk, they have a good offensive mind to take over the team.
Yeah, and Anthony Lynn gets the Chargers job. That didn't take long. They moved from San Diego to Los Angeles after 55 years in San Diego. I thought that would be a big-time hire too, but they, some people liked him with the Bills as offensive coordinator, but Lynn gets the job now in Los Angeles, and they're playing in the StubHub Center in Carson next year, which holds 27,000.
Yeah, which tells us how bad the situation is for the NFL. 3 teams moving out of the 32 in a span of just over a year, and that's not what the league wants. Let's talk about Anthony Lynn for just a minute. We're talking about a guy who is, he's a running back at Texas Tech, 6 seasons in the NFL. He played for the Broncos. He played for the 49ers. Then he's been a running back coach with the Jaguars and the Cowboys and the Browns and the Jets. He landed in Buffalo. He didn't even become offensive coordinator until 2 games into the season after they the Bills fired Greg Roman off that ugly Thursday night game against the Jets. And then, after being promoted from running back coach to offensive coordinator, he then got the head coaching job for Rex Ryan for the last game of the season when Ryan was fired. Of course, Buffalo didn't play particularly well in that ball game. But, now we've got most of the coaching situation settled, Pauly. 5 of the 6 have been locked down.
Well, 2 moves I didn't agree with. The Jags hired Doug Marrone, which I watched Week 17. They blew a 17-point lead in Indy. Vance Joseph, if you watched Denver all year, the problem was on offense. And then Miami, where he was a defensive coordinator with the Dolphins, they were 29th in total defense. How the hell does he get the job? But he walks into a great situation. The Bills hired Sean McDermott, who was the DC in Carolina. There's one team that's still left, and Kyle Shanahan has to get this job, I would think.
I don't know. I wouldn't want that job. Okay,
that's fair.
I really, if I have a coach if I have a choice, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm like, you can take the 49ers job now, or you can be stuck as an offensive coordinator for another season and then go through the coaching search process next year. I go through the coaching search process next year because the San Francisco organization is the worst organization in the NFL right now. It's not even close. You have billionaire baby owners who don't know what they're doing. The 49ers are going to stink for every bit as long as the New York Knicks have stinked. The billionaire baby owners are really problematic for the fan bases. And the other 5 teams have already hired their coach. Who's last? No surprise. The worst organization in the NFL. It's trouble time for San Fran. It was trouble time last year. It's trouble time this year. It's going to be trouble time in the indefinite future for a team that really doesn't know what the heck they're doing.
Then they still have to pay Tom Sula and Chip Kelly. Mercy. Unbelievable. Up next, big game breakdown. Divisional round Sunday. How about the Steelers and the Chiefs and the Packers and the Cowboys? 2 great games in the play of the day on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
That's right, the 8th annual SBR Forum Bash will be held at the breathtaking all-inclusive Hard Rock Hotel in Punta Cana on Super Bowl weekend. Join Natalie Rydstrom and the Odds Couple as they mingle with SBR pros and have fun under the sun. Stay tuned for video coverage of Bash activities, including a $5,000 poker tournament sponsored by uwager.eu. Only on SBR, your sportsbook authority since 1999.
Back on SportsBIT, Betting Insight today. Follow us on Twitter at Pauly Howard, at Teddy_covers. As always, live on sportsbookreview.com. Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, NBC. Yes, Steelers and the Chiefs. Chiefs 1.5, 44 the total. Weather, ice storm potential. Careful out there if you're going to the game. Freezing rain expected to begin in the KC metro area as soon as tonight and continue through at least Saturday. By Sunday morning, ice accumulations are expected to be enough to make any untreated roads or streets hazardous. For now, the Sunday forecast has a threat of freezing rain early in the day and changing over to rain later. It's a rematch, 43-14. Steelers punked them on Sunday night. And counting the playoffs, Andy Reid 20-2 off the bye. It's interesting to note that this line has moved up. Remember, I saw 2.5 right away. Pittsburgh was favored, and then you saw 47 the total, and then, the report came out that Big Ben had the Himalayan walking boot he got from Elaine Bennis walking around afterwards, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to be okay. But the markets reacted to that report that Ben had the walking boot on.
Yeah, but since that time, I mean, it was an initial, the money was pouring in on KC at the Open. And now we've seen a little bit of buyback on the Pittsburgh side of the equation. So with the line down 1.5 railing number, you can find plenty of ones out there. And this was more like 2.5 a couple of days ago. So we have seen a little bit of buyback on the Pittsburgh side of the equations. You're going to hear this over and over again. Now, Andy Reid, 20-2 off a bye. That's straight up record. Now, let's look at this and put it under the microscope a little bit, okay? He's acquired a bye in the playoffs. This is just the fourth time in his 18-year coaching career that his team has gotten a first-round bye in the playoffs. He did it in 2002 with the Eagles, 2003 with the Eagles, 2004 with the Eagles. They won and covered all of those games, although one of them came in overtime against Green Bay. But what stood out about their three opponents, all right, they beat Atlanta, Green Bay, Minnesota. That was the Michael Vick-led Falcons, the Brett Favre-led Packers, the Dante Culpepper-led Vikings. Three teams with pretty good quarterbacks and pretty good offenses. All of them were top 10 offenses in that particular season. And Andy Reid's teams held them to a combined total of 37 points in those three playoff victories. But again, we're talking about stuff that's more than a decade ago. While Reid does have a great track record off a bye, I wouldn't be betting on or against Kansas City simply because of that track record. Much of it is from way back in the day.
Yep, good point there. They're plus 16 in turnovers in KC Football Outsider ratings. Look at this graphic. Overall 6th, offense 13th, defense 14th, special teams 2nd. It shows the impact of special teams, often neglected by bettors. It's a fireable offense if you kick to Tyreek Hill. Hill and Kelsey have accounted for 45% of their yards in the last 6 games. And as we've talked about many times on SportsBIT, it was the turnover differential with the Chiefs as well, because it seemed they were outgained every game.
Well, yeah, I mean, for the season, Kansas City trailed their opponents by 37 first downs and 408 total yards. So how do you overcome that? As you mentioned, the plus 16 turnover margin and the impact of those dynamite special teams. Look at this. Kansas City averaged 43 yards net per punt. Their opponents averaged 36 yards net per punt. So every time the Chiefs punted and their opponents punted, Kansas City gained 7 yards. They picked up about 33 yards per game just in that category. Tyreek Hill, what do you have, 3 return touchdowns? KC didn't allow any, so there it is, another 21 points over 16 games. That's more than a point per game average. And I like what Andy Reid did here. Andy Reid gave the Chiefs a complete week off, a whole week, to get physically fresh and maybe to take the pressure off. Here's what he said about the bye week. Quote, every team is crazy different. Every situation in the league is different. Every year is different. I know the bye normally doesn't hurt you if you handle it the right way. I have enough trust our team will handle it the right way. There's a lot of trust that goes into this thing.
Yes, and the Steelers have a far better defense. You know, in that first matchup, 43-14, Bell ran wild on the Chiefs. But this is a hot team that's won 8 in a row. 5-4 before Harrison became the starter. 8-0 since. Now Dupree starting for the 5th straight game also. He had the big hit on Moore starting at linebacker. And Le'Veon Bell might be the most important non-quarterback player in the NFL right now. Built for the playoffs, comes in fresh. Teddy, I've never seen a running back before this patient who actually stops. So he looks to pick the holes in how he chewed up Miami last week. And it was 36-0 going into the fourth quarter on that Sunday night game. As I mentioned, 144 yards rushing on only 18 carries, and he had 5 grabs for 34 yards also in the win earlier against KC.
Sure, and when you talk about Bell's success and how Bell is built for January football, you look at Kansas City, and again, statistically, what's their biggest weakness? The run defense. Number 26 on Football Outsiders adjusted ratings. They allowed close to 2,000 rushing yards at 4.4 per carry. The other question with KC, and you said it's a fireable offense to kick the ball to Tyreek Hill. If teams simply kick the ball away from Hill, does that end up negating a big chunk of their special teams edge? That's an interesting question, and I wonder what Pittsburgh's going to do in that regard in this game.
Yeah. How about Alex Smith? Do you think he can win a big game like this?
Yes, I do. I don't look at Alex Smith and saying Ben Roethlisberger's so much better than you are. Alex Smith has been a very effective quarterback in that system that he's run, just like he was at Utah under Urban Meyer, a guy who's never been loved, who's never gotten any respect, and yet a guy who was the number one overall draft choice, a guy who's had a rock-solid NFL career, a guy who's been able to win in places where others have struggled. Alex Smith's not Big Ben, but I don't look at Alex Smith and saying, this guy can't win this game, he's not a good enough quarterback. He is, Pauly. He really is.
All right. Should be a lot of fun on Sunday. Up next, we get to the late game. Wow, two public teams, the Packers and the Cowboys, and it's only the third rookie quarterback to start off a bye. We'll get to Dak and the gang and red-hot Aaron Rodgers sneaking a college football game as well. College basketball game as well. That'd be nice, huh? Can we fast forward to September? And, of course, the play of the day on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBIT Betting Insight today. Big game breakdown continues. Live on sportsbookreview.com. The late game on Fox Sunday afternoon, Packers and the Cowboys. Dallas 4.5, 52.5 the total. Again, playoff experience since 2010. Packers have 8 playoff wins. The Cowboys have 1. But, of course, the rookies have 0. And the Cowboys rookies, I think they're impervious to pressure. Former NFL quarterback Matt Hasselbeck. Cowboys rookies, don't even know what they don't even know. They're so naive, it will help them tremendously. It's kind of freeing when you don't know how big the moment is. End quote. Prescott becomes just the third rookie to start a playoff game off the bye since the current format in 1990. The other two, Sean King and Roethlisberger, they both won their first 2 games before losing in the conference championships.
So, I love that quote from Hasselbeck. They don't know what they don't even know what they don't know. And think about it, Pauly. When I first moved to Vegas, okay, if I would have known everything, no way I moved to Vegas. You're like, no, I'm not doing that. Are you kidding? Your hair's going to go all gray. It's going to make you crazy. But the fact that you don't know when you're in this situation, the fact that you're young and naive, I think it does help Dallas tremendously in this ballgame. Here's a quote from Dak Prescott. Quote, can't really say that I've ever truly put it in my head that I'm a rookie, that I can't do something. I never put that stigma on myself. So I'm excited and ready to go. I want to go where those guys are. I want to win multiple Super Bowls in this league. So it's going to be great going against those guys, seeing those guys on the other side, and just watching them, knowing I have a good team and a team that can beat them. And you talk about how they rolled. Look, they rolled the Packers. Some of these rematch games, I don't put anything to it. I really don't. The situation stood out as bad or good for one team or another. This wasn't one of those games. Green Bay came to play, and Dallas, 33 for $191 on the ground. The offensive line pushed the Packers' defensive line all night long in that first meeting between these two teams.
Now, Rodgers did have 4 turnovers. I don't expect that to happen on Sunday, but he should be without Jordy Nelson. The kid just got out of the hospital on Monday. He has 2 fractured ribs. He won't practice till Saturday. I can't imagine he plays. If he does, what's he at? 10%, 20%? But can they get stops? Because Green Bay scored at least 30 points in each of the last 5 games. The last 8 games for Green Bay, Rodgers has 22 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, on fire. And as you saw against the Giants, these guys don't have to be open. He just has to get a tight spot and he'll fit it in there.
Yes, when Jordy Nelson is in the offense and the offense is working efficiently. 30 plus each of the last 5 games. And 22-0. Think about it. When Joe Flacco went on that legendary playoff run and took the Baltimore Ravens to the Super Bowl, what was his ratio? 11 TDs, 0 INTs, and that was the greatest postseason run of all time, Now Aaron Rodgers has basically doubled that. 22 touchdowns without a pick. I'm not going to say he's due, but he's due. Look, Pro Football Focus, all right, final regular season rankings of secondaries. Number 1, the Dallas Cowboys. That's how high the Dallas pass defense is ranked in some advanced metric circles. Now look, they're not loaded with elite talents. Barry Church, The safety ranks number 9 among safeties. And Morris Claiborne ranks number 12. And Brandon Carr was on the field for the most snaps. And, Church gets the best coverage grade, or run defense grade. And Claiborne gets the best coverage grade. But when you put all those guys together, after having just one defensive back with an above-average coverage grade last season, all 8 players with at least 100 snaps in 2016 earned average or better grades. What's happened? The defense didn't get elite. They just got competent, and that's gone a long way towards the Cowboys' success this season.
Yes, Football Outsiders rate Dallas 15th D overall, 18th against the pass, and 8th against the run, and they allowed 61% completions. Only Detroit was worse. That's the bad there. But, if you can cover, that's one thing. It's going to be hard to cover Adams and Cobb if you can't put pressure on Rodgers and you let him just stand there.
Yeah, and some of the pass defensive numbers are ugly. When you're 31 out of 32 NFL teams in completion percentage, that's not good going up against Aaron Rodgers. When you'll get interceptions on, 1.4% of all passes, only the Jaguars got interceptions on a fewer percentage of all passes. So you ask yourself, is the truth in the ratings of the defensive backs or in the production of the unit as a whole? Now you talk about that Football Outsider rank, with the 15 defense overall. They rank Dallas 8 against the run and 18 against the pass. So you're seeing very dramatic differences in terms of the advanced metric numbers for that Cowboys defense. The bottom line for Dallas is that it's going to help them. The Jordy Nelson factor to me is the key point in the game. If Nelson can't be at his usual self, I don't think that Aaron Rodgers can have the type of success he's been having against the Cowboys defense that is at least pretty good against the pass. Whether or not they're elite, that's another question entirely.
It's also playoff revenge, too, from a couple years ago. Des Bryant could have a big game. Remember, that should have been a game-winning touchdown in Lambeau. That's if 100 guys are watching the game in a bar, 95 think it's a touchdown. You got a problem. They said incomplete, no catch. Cowboys thought they were robbed. Packers get the win at home. So maybe Dez has a big game in this one, too. Let's sneak in one college game, live out at sportsbookreview.com. Saturday morning on ESPN, Duke and Louisville. Looks like Louisville 5.5 with Teddy's ratings.
Yeah, that's a guesstimate line. I don't ever expect my college basketball numbers to be right on the number, but I would expect Louisville to be in a 5-6 point favorite range over Duke, which you don't see every day. Yeah, and how do we power rate Duke now on the road? 2 ACC road games, laying 4.5 at Va Tech, smoked by 14. Getting 1.5 at Florida State, smoked by 16. No Coach K. And let's be honest, Grayson Allen's become a distraction. Kid's a lunatic. I mean, it's something every game with this kid. Yeah, I mean, you talk about the Florida State game, FSU 30 of 52 on 2-point shot attempts, just shy of 60%. That's having to play without Emil Jefferson with a foot injury. Without him up front, they're kind of getting overwhelmed inside a little bit, and that a concern to me. And, a Duke problem for the rest of the season, instead of letting up against them, most opponents are going to enjoy kicking them when they're down, especially guys like Rick Pitino. No one's going to take it easy on Duke when they're going through some struggles, and obviously so far on the highway, they've gone through more than their fair share of struggles the last couple of games.
And again, Louisville has the size and the depth to control the paint. Number 1 in the nation in defensive efficiency. They've already blocked 116 shots, number 2 in the nation, and 121 steals through 17 games. 5 different players have at least 5 block shots. 5 different players have at least 11 steals. Got a great defensive group there with Louisville. Money time, play of the day. 47-25 on the football season. Already gave out New England and the Texans under for Saturday night. Sunday, back to back to KC and Pittsburgh. What are we doing with this, Teddy?
Let's take a look at game number 306, and we're going to take the wise guy choice here. We're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs, -1.5. We're graded at 1.5, though I encourage you, if you like KC, shop around. You can find a 1. If you have access to more than one sportsbook, you should be able to find a 1. And this is trust in Alex Smith. This is trust in Andy Reid off a bye. This is trust for the Chiefs to be able to execute in nasty conditions. And maybe it's a little bit of disrespect for Pittsburgh when it comes down to actually physically pounding a team like Kansas City twice in the same season. Let's go with the Chiefs, -1.5. That's our play of the day.
Excellent, fun show. We will have a show on Monday on MLK Day. A lot to go over. We'll know the 4 teams left in the 2 championship games. We got a lot of things to talk about.
NBA, we'll have it live.
That's
NBA
right.
all
You
day.
got that right. It's a monster day with a ton of games in the association and college hoops as well. Have a good weekend out there. We're back Monday. Tell your friends. Oh, hey, thanks for the participation too Thursday night, Teddy.
Yeah, that was awesome. Doing the Google Hangouts. We're going to do that every Thursday, 8 o'clock Pacific time. I know there was some technical snafus. Pauly couldn't join us, but hopefully he'll be there next week. Hopefully you will be too. Thanks for watching SportsBIT Betting Insight Today.